right, welcome to the Exitable Business Podcast, where we discuss how to create enterprise value all of the time, how to double and triple the value of your business now, not just when it's time to sell or when you get an offer. This is episode number 15, and today we have the privilege to have Richard Palarea on the show, and Richard is the CEO of Kermit. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Thanks, Patrick. It's great to be with you and your audience today.
Awesome. Richard's the CEO of Kermit, and they're a Baltimore-based healthcare cost reduction and spend management company. They bring automation and insight to the high spend category of implantable medical devices within hospitals, health systems. It was founded, since its founding in 2011, Kermit and their company has saved hospitals more than 200 million, which is just amazing. And they manage 40% of the implantable device spend transacting in the entire state of Maryland. So, Richard, one of the things I love to do to, icebreaker to open it up is, what's one interesting fact that, maybe not many people know about you?
About me personally.
Yeah.
So I was in the Guinness Book of World Records. I doubt that I'm still in there, but I was in there at, I think, 13 years old.
What?
And the record that I held at the time was I was the youngest person to be certified in CPR. My dad was a doctor. He was a cardiologist. We grew up in Long Beach, California. And one of the things he did, I was in a Cub Scouts group. One of the things he wanted to do was he wanted us all to get certified in CPR. So he went to the Red Cross on his way home from the office one day, grabbed the CPR dummy, both the baby and the full-size person,
right.
and brought it home. And for the next, I think it was like 6 weeks, these 12 and 13-year-olds went through the process of learning CPR. And at the time, we didn't know we were the youngest, but one of the other scout leaders said, this is pretty impressive. I bet if we call Guinness, they'll come out and certify us. And it turns out that we were at the time. So that was pretty cool. I learned CPR as a very young kid. This is the closest as a CEO of a cost reduction company in the med device world that I will ever get to becoming a doctor. I hope that's okay with my mom. That's about as close as I'm ever going to get. But it's been a fascinating journey growing up in healthcare, but then doing many other business things, and then having this come kind of full circle where I'm combining business with the work we're doing in hospitals. It's been kind of full circle, very fulfilling.
Full circle, and just got to be so rewarding to know that you're having such an impact and you're able to help hospitals out so much who are already, hospitals are such a low profit margin entity, right?
Yeah, and here I mean, look at where we're with the culture and the atmosphere that we're in talking about this today. Post pandemic, hopefully there's no more new variants coming out, but here we are with hospitals who have turned down and basically closed their operating rooms for a period of time. That's their top line revenue. Those elective surgeries typically are what power most hospitals to be able to offer the rest of the services they do to the community. And so they had to shut those operating rooms down. They really didn't know what to expect. I don't know what it was like in the state you were in, but here in Maryland, they were setting up tents in parking lots. We really didn't know what it was going to be, right?
Right.
And so, that just stopped. And then at the same time, once the pandemic kind of waned, you really didn't have those patients who were like 60, 70 years old having knee, hip, spine surgery coming back into the hospital in droves, because those hospitals were the ones they saw on TV where there were refrigerated trucks parked outside and bodies going in, right? So I don't know that they were really comfortable coming back. So it's been a very slow move back toward what we would consider to be normal. But you're right, the operating margins are very, very thin. The cash on hand at any given time is far less than what you or I would be comfortable running our own business with.
Yeah. So the impact is huge for the healthcare of America, specifically Maryland. That's awesome. So if you would, Richard, tell us a little bit more about Kermit and maybe a little bit more about your journey that led you to, where you are today.
Okay, sure. So I think one other thing that's really interesting, it's not my background. It just happens to be this space that I found myself in. Yeah. We've been doing this since 2011. And what is really unique that most people don't really know or understand about this category is that when you go in for a knee surgery or a hip surgery, we're talking about joint replacement, anything where there's an implantable medical device used. It happens again in spine, it happens in neurology, all the cardiovascular lines, things like stents and pacemakers and defibrillators. There's a salesperson for the implant company standing in the operating room with you as a patient on the table and with the surgeon, They're not there to provide patient care of any kind. They're there for one very important reason. They're there to be the expert about the devices that the physician is using in the surgery. So if, for example, the physician can't be expert on everything in that product line, and they need a very specific implant, say, for example, they get in to do a knee surgery and there's a tumor in the bone, and they need a different style implant, they're going to turn to that rep in the room and rely upon that rep to give them the right implant.
Right.
A lot of people are surprised by that. Like, what is the salesperson doing in the operating room?
Sure.
They're not doing the surgery.
Right.
Are they selling things? Did they sell things to me in surgery while I was asleep on the table? I had no say in it, right? So I heard this story for the first time about 11 years ago when two former medical device reps walked into my office. I had another entity I'd started. Kermit is the 5th business that I've started. I co-founded it with these two gentlemen who were former medical device reps. And at the time I was doing something different. But a mutual business acquaintance of ours encouraged us to connect and hear the story. And they wanted to set up an entity, a brand new business, where they could take everything they learned over 10, 11 years of being in the hospital and really having their employer tell them how to kind of, with this lack of transparency, kind of keep the prices high, keep the margins high. And I'll get into it in a minute about how the billing works. So this is really the problem that Kermit solves. Right. And keep the prices high. And they really didn't like that. That did sit well with them. So they said, we know all this information. What if we go back to hospitals that we worked at for a long time and show them how this works, show them how to save money. And in exchange for those services, we'll take a portion of what we save them as our fee. And that was
the savings.
Percentage of savings, right. And that was a business model that I actually had. I started a business with and for my wife many years ago, 20 years ago, that was negotiating parcel contracts. So FedEx, UPS, DHL type contracts for some of the nation's largest shippers. And we would only take a portion of the savings that we could drive. And so when this attorney who connected us thought, okay, Rich has the business model. He already has a brand, some goodwill. He has some software assets he developed. He has the acumen. Go talk to him. And she had the foresight to connect those dots. On face value, if I met these two guys in a bar or over coffee, I wouldn't have put it together, but she did it. I'd credit her with the wisdom there.
Women are always, they always have that intuition sometimes and networking ability.
That's for sure. So yeah, they came in, they told me the story about how they stand in the operating room, how, there's plenty of ways in which they were trained to increase the bill or what they were selling to the hospital.
Right.
Extra screws. Nobody's going to check the billing. It's easy to put another drill bit on there because maybe they needed to, but nobody's gonna be able to check it. And so all of this bill, this process is tracked on a piece of paper by the implant rep who's peeling barcode stickers off of the implant boxes and then affixing them to a piece of paper, and then using a pen or a pencil to write down the price they want to charge. And then they get a nurse to sign that sheet in the operating room. Then they walk down the hallway to procurement or purchasing and turn that sheet in and say, I need a purchase order. Here's everything I sold to your surgeons today. And that person, that buyer, they don't have any clinical understanding of why the surgeon used what he or she did. No. So at best, they're spot checking these bills or looking for anomalies that just don't match up. But by and large, for the most part, they're just signing off on it and then the vendor gets paid. So I heard this story and I thought about kind of two things. I thought, one, it's very rare that you find anything these days that hasn't been digitized, a paper-based process that still exists today. And then I thought about the intersection of healthcare and technology, and health IT. Digital health has been a really, really hot area for the last 15 years.
Absolutely.
The federal government has mandated that hospitals go to electronic medical records. They've subsidized that move. So you have a whole industry that has sprung up that's been subsidized by the government. And I thought, I could forget that we ever had this meeting, and I could just go back to what I was doing, have no intention of selling my business. It was a great lifestyle business, putting money in my family's pockets, but I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied having heard this story. I'm always going to wonder, what if we could have innovated and done something really cool to change an entire industry that's been doing for 50 years? It's been done this way.
That's disruptive if you can change how that's. Totally.
Yeah. And I don't know how you feel, Patrick, about the word. It just gets kicked around so loosely these days, but it truly is disruptive to the point where you're bringing good and you're bringing change in a meaningful way, in a way that hasn't been done before. And I think we think about that word as being maybe something that's negative, but it truly is. It's innovative. And you've got to also kind of balance the business side of healthcare with the altruistic side of helping patients. And that's been a tough mix too, to get to.
Well, and in business anymore, so many people just do something just because it makes money. Like that wasn't the first thought in your mind. Your first thought is, I'm going to have the ability to help make something better, help the hospitals be more profitable and solve a problem that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah. And it was really freeing to come at this business and start the business with that mindset, because I didn't have a financial need. And most businesses that I've started, in fact, the other four that I started up until that point, were all because it was a financial need. I had to do something. I didn't want to work for somebody else. I'd done that for many years.
Yeah.
I had the acumen to start things and grow things, but
Yeah.
this one was different. This had more of a, an altruistic bent to it, which really kind of, and maybe I was just finally old enough to kind of like feel okay with that. I was already in my 40s when we started Kermit, so the maturity probably helped too.
Well, and it fuels your passion too, right? It's so easy in a different industry. So as you, and thanks for catching us up there in a little bit of your journey. That's fantastic. Always love knowing the why behind why people are doing what they do in business. And so yours is so altruistic. That's fantastic. So if you were to, you've been extremely successful. Kermit's. I don't know if you feel at liberty to share how big Kermit is on air. If you do, please feel
Okay, sure, yeah. So we obviously it was an idea, and in 10 years it's gone to a staff of 23 right now. A couple more positions we're looking to hire, but I feel like we're pretty much staffed to the point where we've got all the key execs, all the line management, a lot of it is subject matter expertise. And there really isn't any redundancy in this business. So that means that every single person we've hired them for a specific reason, that particular person, because of their background. And we don't function unless everybody is here working at their full capacity, totally committed to the mission. So there's a little bit of risk in that. We can't have somebody get sick or get disgruntled and leave. Every single team member is important. We are in the $8 to $12 million a year revenue place.
Awesome.
So we've been this year we just announced we're in the Inc. 5000 for our second year in a row. So that's a real nice honor to have.
Yeah. Nice.
Baltimore Business Journal, fastest growing privately held company, a couple years over now. We made the list a couple times. The next milestone, though, is more a lot of the things that you're really passionate about, the things you talk about on your show, which how do you take a business you've gone from kind of 0 to 10? How do you get it from 10 to 20? And how do you build it to be something that somebody is wanting to acquire, so that we can actually become part of a larger organization with more breadth and depth across all of the different places in healthcare? We sell primarily to supply chain. And so when we go into supply chain, there's a very kind of limited life that we have there. If I don't have a reason to be in the CFO's office or the CEO's office or the chief medical officer's office, then our value can be limited. So I'd love to be acquired by a larger organization in a strategic way that we could plug in what we're doing with a large software company or a large whatever consulting company. And so that's what we're building. We're building toward that next milestone right now. And a lot of the themes that you talk about are things I embrace. When you build a data room, how do you keep it up to date? So you're ready with all the materials you need when somebody wants to come in and do due diligence. You show that you're a responsible organization that really understands the metrics they're looking for and have all that ready to go. So that's kind of the next chapter where we are in the kind of ensuing 10 years that we're in.
Sure. Yeah.
But we're very young in the case of we're a mid-Atlantic company. We're based in Baltimore. We have market share, like you said, 40% of the implant spend that transacts in the state today runs through our system.
Right.
But that's about it. Then if you look at the rest of the map of the US, I'm scattered all over the place. We need to go to market right now. We just hired our first chief growth officer, who's hired his first national sales force with a marketing department internally. Wow. So we're ramping all of that up, and everybody really needs to hear the story. And I want any hospital who wants to try this to have the opportunity to try it our way.
Very cool, man. Very cool. And I'd love to dive in a little bit more and talk about, where you are now and some of the things that you're working on to get the transferable value. Before we get to that, I'd love to, what do you think are maybe the top 2 or 3 things over this, since 2011 have been the key to your success that's brought you to where you are today?
So people, for sure. Finding the right people, making sure that I kind of although I think kind of the whole good to great mantra was really impactful when the book came out.
Sure.
There are only kind of been a few lasting pieces that have kind of stayed with me. And one of them was kind of right people, right seats. When you find the right people, they'll self-manage. If you get people who are plugged in and passionate about what you're doing, and they take on their own ownership aspect, you give them an area to manage in the company and they own it. They can build their own little company inside of what you're doing.
Right.
I mean, you pay them a fair wage and you give them bonuses and you do all the things to keep them happy culturally. They manage themselves. You really don't have to manage people, you know? And so I look at this great resignation that we're in the middle of right now. And I wonder, like, when we're just going to kind of like snap out of it and realize that a lot of people who left to go do something else and find that it was a temporal thing, that were looking for something that didn't make them happy, right? So people, number one, has been kind of, that's been our journey. With a company called Kermit, you have to think that it's a pretty fun place to work.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
So culture is everything around here. If I turn my camera around and showed you kind of the bookcase on the other side, you'd see that clients send me all kinds of frog, this and that. And
Awesome.
when we named the company, you know, the attorney said, good, cool, it'll work. Don't do anything green. Don't do anything with frogs. You'll be sued by Jim Henson in a second.
Are you going to do a bolt-on acquisition of Piggy?
Yeah, we got to look for Miss Piggy. She'd be a great acquisition.
Yeah. Yeah, so I love what you're saying, that you hire the best people and you empower them. And I love what you said. You almost like empower them to run their own little company. What does that mean to you? Like what kind of things do you do to kind of foster that empowerment and that trust among the team?
Yeah. So, you know, in the area that we're in, because it is so clinically complex, these devices, there are 23 different categories that we manage. It's knee and hip, it's spine. We get into some really complex categories like biologics, and these can be, it can be human bone and tissue that's harvested from cadavers. It can be from the animal kingdom. It can be, you know, chemical. There's lots of really complex things. Sure. These people that come in and do this work know far more about this area than I do. But I'm the CEO. My role is just to do CEO stuff, right? And so if everybody just has a really well-defined kind of role that they do, and we honor everybody for the subject matter experts that they are, and we plug them into the right seats, and then you're really looking just like, what are the seats we still need to be a fully formed, functioning company, not to go public, not to go into the Fortune 500, just to get to the next milestone that we need to.
Sure.
That's the objective. And so in that, you've got to bring in people, but you can't squash their creativity. Everything in this category is about innovation. We have software, for example, that manages the billing. And in that software, we've never had anybody go out and compete with us. We don't have anybody we're following. So this is all about pioneering. We're only one step ahead of the market right now. So you've got to have people that you know, it's okay to fail. Those are messages we give to our people. You'll get a budget, but if you need more, we'll find you the money. Like whatever you need, you just think about, if the canvas is blank, what do you want to create? And a lot of these people came from hospitals. They're coming to us and telling us, had anybody listened to me when I was there, I articulated this very application, but nobody wanted to listen to me. And we say, come over here and you can help us build it. Yeah. And so these are people that they've been boots on the ground. They know what's required. And then they come over here and we just kind of fulfill their dreams. They also, there's one common thing about the people that came from the hospital industry too. They got tired of being in that high pressure environment and they wanted something that was a different culture. Right. And so it was a very big change for some of them. Some of them are used to getting up at 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning. And I tell them, it's like, it's okay. We start work at 8:30. Like you don't have to be here that early.
A little bit, but I love what you're saying about that, because there's so many companies that they run very rigid, right? This is how we do it. This is the way we've done it forever. And they lose out on that ability of fostering that creativity. And you're taking it to an extreme, which I think is phenomenal.
I mean, how do you react as a leader when you hear somebody say, or as an employee, this is how we've done it forever? Like I just shut down, because for me, somebody who's creative and who's an entrepreneur and wants to try things and is willing to risk and fail, because there's nothing wrong with that. It just means we're just not going to do that again. We're going to turn and do something different. It's all learning, right? So when you think about that, my brain shuts down when I hear that. I just think I'm gonna suffocate here if somebody isn't open to looking at a different way of doing things. Because if you've already been doing that way for forever and it hasn't worked, you got to kind of take a step back and say, why hasn't it worked?
Marginally at best. Yeah.
Right.
You mentioned culture a couple times now. I'd love to know your thoughts on how, besides creativity and don't make mistakes and this innovation side of things. Tell us more about your culture and what it's like at Kermit and how you fostered that.
Yeah, sure. So I think it's family first. And I know a lot of companies say that. We live it out as a necessity. When I started this company 10 years ago, my kids were 10 years younger than they are now. My eldest is 25 and she works here. So she was 15 when we started this. So, there's that aspect. Everybody's got younger kids. That means that they're in school. That means when COVID hit and those kids weren't in school, they were at home. What kinds of things can you do as an employer to give people the freedom so they don't feel like this is my job from 8:30 to 5. I have to be there. I have no flexibility. No, the way we did it was you have all the flexibility you need. I have to lead by example. So if I have to go take my child to a doctor's appointment or my pet to the vet and it's 2 p.m, I put my messages on hold. I put a Slack message out and tell everybody I'm going to be gone for an hour and here's where you find me, text me, whatever. And I leave. And I expect everybody to have that freedom. And by doing that, we came up with this kind of like very liberal personal time off policy. We don't keep track of it. We just tell people you can
keep track of it at all.
Yeah, well, I think we do for HR purposes, but we're not managing their, okay, you've taken the last hour, you don't have any more for the year kind of a thing. Wow. It's very, very open. It's very liberal. So if they say, for example, my lead developer, my lead software developer is a firefighter and an EMT. He's very passionate about that at a volunteer fire department. And so he's coding all day long, but he's also got his phone on his desk. When the alarm goes off and it's something local, there's a motor vehicle accident or something, it's okay if he leaves and goes and handles that.
Wow.
Right. So it's very risky as leadership to be able to offer that. But at the same time, when we did it and kind of did it with open hands, what we found was that particular employee in particular comes back from the fire and puts in an extra 3 hours during the day. Like if he has to work till 10, he works till 10 because he appreciates it and he's just going to do the work and get it done. So culture, family, number one in culture. And then I'd say this idea we were just talking about of kind of owning your own business. If you give them, people they like a framework, they like to know what the boundaries are. But if you make those boundaries wide enough where they can have creativity between those boundaries, you get people who excel very quickly. And one example I can give you here is we hired a marketing manager. It was, I think it may be only his second or third job out of college. So he's pretty young, but day one contributor, didn't have to give him a lot of direction, gave him a lot of creative latitude. And within the first year, we promoted him to director of marketing because he's coming up with strategy. He's doing things we didn't ask him to do. So I think, giving people those creative lanes to be able to express themselves and do things that bring them fulfillment, that's super important.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so, if I'm a business owner or entrepreneur listening to this and I heard that this virtually unlimited paid time off in a sense, kind of, is that true?
Yeah. We're just not managing their 9 to 5. They can do what they want with that time as long as they get their work done.
Yeah. So the things that I would be thinking about, because I'm coming from a traditional, right, my mind's in a different place. I'm coming from a different place in this. I'm thinking, how do I know that they wouldn't abuse it? And then how do I keep track? So again, my mind goes right back to the totalitarian or, concept there is how do you put a boundary? How do you control yourself from being taken advantage of as an employer? Right. That would be the question I would want to ask.
It's a great question. And I think a lot of it has to do with kind of mindset. So if you go back to the earlier discussion we were having about finding the right people, and if you really spend a lot of time doing that, and I have kind of a hack that I've been introduced to called Culture Index. Now, I don't know if you've run into Culture Index.
Yes.
It's got some background in the military, actually. So fantastic tool. Very easy for somebody to take. Within 6 minutes, you get your read back. Finding the right people to go into those right seats You find those people that they're self-managing, they're
Mm.
self-motivating. Do they
Mm.
need a great leader to cast the vision? Yes, I think everybody does. But do they really need a manager to babysit them? Probably not. And if
Mm.
you're hiring that type of person, then you should be worried about, are they going to get their work done? Are they going to abuse it? Because they probably will. But if you find the right person and you spend a little bit of extra time doing that, I guarantee the time you get back in not having to manage them will be tenfold for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those who don't know the culture index, it's basically a psychometric analysis. But it's the thing about culture index, which I think is great, is it's more it's not skill set. It's not character. It's behavioral based, right? Right. Behavior, which is because there's two different kinds. One's, their personality, excuse me. One's personality and another's behavioral, and cultural index is really more behavioral, right?
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the things it's measuring kind of at an esoteric level, but then there's a lot of science behind it too, is what charges your batteries? What kind of a person are you, and what burns you out quickly? And so you can put somebody in the right seat, and you can put them in the wrong seat too if you don't have this data and this information. So for example, I may seem, friendly and charismatic when we're here having this conversation, but I'm very much of an introvert. It doesn't mean I'm not outgoing. I think we confuse those two things. The introvert likes to spend time, their batteries are fueled by, like, I can work in a spreadsheet trying to solve a problem for an hour, and that doesn't burn me out. I get energy from that.
Wow.
But if I have to go, manage a group of people and lead them from the front for a long period of time and cheerlead them and rah them, I can do it, but my batteries will run down quickly, and I'll need to go back and recharge. And that's personal time for me, usually something solitary or independent. Yeah. So it shows you those traits. How detailed are you? If you're super detailed and you're doing things that don't include detail, or worse yet, you're not detailed at all and you're asked to do something detailed, it'll burn you out. So in this very quick kind of like four different metrics, you're able to measure and manage. Have I got Patrick in the right seat? Is Rich in the right seat? Are we set up for success?
Yeah. So do you also use that tool, Richard, in reassessing or assessing current employees?
Yeah, for the past couple of years, we've been doing one called the Harrison assessment. It's for what we're doing, I think it's just way overkill compared to what you can get from Culture Index. Okay. Harrison is, I don't know, something like 80 questions, and you get back like pages, reams of paper back. Culture Index is literally 2 questions. And then there's just kind of this word cloud. And here's the first question, you select the words that match. Here's the second question, same word cloud, and you select the words. And it literally takes about 6 minutes. And it is so accurate in that 6 minutes. So I think what we're going to see is when we go through this next phase of implementing, I think I mentioned to you on a previous conversation we were having, we are users of Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is something else I really credit to the growth of the company, and really determining who's going to be doing what and staying on track with that stuff. That's one of the reasons when you have a really good roadmap like EOS can provide you, that you can allow people to take that time to go do what they need to do, because it'll show up if they're not getting their things done, because those rocks and those different to-dos aren't getting done. So having a system has helped a lot too. But I think as we embark on this next phase of EOS, the Culture Index will probably factor very prominently into that. Because it's an easy ask, I'll probably actually ask everybody here to take it. And I think it's actually kind of fun to get the results too. Yeah, very cool. So so it's maybe a good point to kind of transition, this next phase that you're going towards. Do you already have and again, if there's anything that I asked that you don't want to disclose on, you just please let me know. But do you already have kind of a target for exit or anything like that you're, hey, this size or this many years, anything like that you're already kind of, the end sight ends in? Yeah. I don't know what you're seeing. It's probably the same thing I'm seeing. I'm probably getting now as a business owner, 4 to 5 emails per day of private equity and VC looking to place money still. I mean, it still seems like there's a lot of money out there trying to find a home, and not a lot of companies still that are investable. So that's still very much part of the theme. We have put together our own growth strategy, and we're executing that from a self-funded point of view. So while I do have one early investor in the business, he was a professional football player and a friend of mine who retired from the NFL, put some money in. We never took another round, and we just funded the whole thing kind of on our own growth. So I think it's nice that we have control that is closely held, and a lot of that decision making is all here within the executive team, which is great. There are probably 4 or 5 big themes of groups that would be a strategic acquirer of this business. But again, I think when you think about our culture and how we treat our people and what kind of experience we would want in all of that for them, we're going to be super careful about where we park the company long term. We want it to be creative. We want them to keep doing what they're doing. We just want them to have a much bigger foundation under them and more funding and kind of a sky's the limit kind of a thing. But we don't want to change what they're doing. So that may narrow it a bit, right? There's going to be more of a cultural fit that needs to take place with whomever comes to acquire. But I think the good thing is that the executive team, which is me, my 2 co-founders, my chief growth officer, my chairman of the board, who has exited a few businesses to some of the people who likely would be acquirers, we all have that same vision in mind. Like, let's get this to a point where it's attractive to somebody, but they feel like they're acquiring it early enough where they can really take it further, and it furthers their goal, and we can stay home and build great software and innovate like we have been and manage our customers the way we'd like to, and really get the market share that I think we want. It's going to be really hard, honestly, Patrick, for us to knock on the door of every hospital with a sales group of 3 people and go through the front door and try to get any market share. So channel partnerships, those kinds of strategic things figure very prominently into the next chapter.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And are you guys, remind me again, are you guys remote or are you guys in a centralized office?
Both. It all depends on which side of the pandemic you're referring to, I guess. But yeah, we started out, we're in Baltimore County, in northern Baltimore County of Baltimore, Maryland, and in a physical office. And that was one of the assets that I had when my 2 co-founders came in. They were looking for a place to grow the company, incubate their idea. I had an office. That was one of the things that I put forth as my capital. We outgrew that very quickly. On the day we were naming the company, or naming the software Kermit, we were all kind of crowded into this little tiny office that we had outgrown, kind of sitting on top of each other. So one of the things that we decided to do was, we don't see our customers in the office. We go out to the hospitals. We go on site. So we didn't really have a need to have a really big fancy office, but at the time, and this is now 3 years ago, we decided we wanted to honor the staff as part of this culture. Like, we need space. Let's move to a brand new office. And in doing so, let's trick it out with everything that anybody has ever wanted in an office. Get all the tech. We'll get, the Zoom rooms configured right, and food in the kitchen. And we just did the whole 9. That was December of 2019, I guess.
Perfectly coordinated with aligned with COVID.
So what, we were here 3 months. I remember it was March 15th. That's like the day that sticks in my head where we sent everybody home. And March 15th, and everybody goes home. And then I'm sitting here, pretty sizable rent, customized office. There's, frosted glass everywhere and high tech, 100-inch TVs. And like, I'm the only one here. And I thought, okay, this will blow over. Maybe it'd be a month. I don't know. That's probably the way we were all thinking, right? Maybe it'd be a couple months. And, fast forward to where we are now, we still had a need to grow. So we've taken, we had what was a very liberal kind of telecommuting policy, and just blew that up. We sent everybody home. We already had the infrastructure. Everything was fine. But I always had this feeling like we're all going to come back in the office, and those really cool conversations we have over by the kitchen sink when everybody's getting lunch, or by the whiteboard, where that innovation and that spark takes place. We'll have that again. And we really never have gotten back to that place. The advantage we have is we've hired in lots of different states. I think we have people in like 8 or 9 different states now.
Right.
So that's been great. And that's allowed us to get the best people. We do bring everybody together once or twice a year in kind of an annual meeting setting to just foster that friendship and that family environment and spark ideas. But by and large, for the most part, everything we're doing is via Zoom. And my folks are on Zoom meetings, pretty much from the time they get in the office till the time they leave, whether it's at home or here in the office. Probably have about 5 or 6 people that come in here on a regular basis now.
Yeah. Gotcha. So, when we talked about this, you brought up transferable value and enterprise value early on. What are some of the things that as you go and as you scale the company and continue to scale, what's on the forefront of your mind to be maximizing that enterprise value and attractiveness as you navigate going forward?
Well, we were talking about venture capital and private equity, and so I've had a lot of those meetings. My network is full of those types of people. The person who helped us write our growth plan is a venture capitalist.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Helped us. Yeah, he helped us write the growth plan, and then after getting it all together, he said, "Okay, to fund this growth plan, you're probably going to need $4 to $5 million. So I'll give you a term sheet, and you have the right to say no to it, but it's the amount of money you need." And basically, I've de-risked the deal because I've done due diligence on the job as I put the growth plan together. So it's a great model. But what we realized is that cash was already on the balance sheet. We didn't need it from another source. So we decided to self-fund. But in those conversations that I've had with many VCs and private equity companies, the same question comes up time and again. I'll tell them what we do. I'll tell them it's part consulting and we get a share of the savings, and it's part software.
Right.
And then they'll say, how much of your revenue comes from consulting activity versus software? Because in their mind, they're thinking software as a service, the SaaS multiple. Am I going to pay a multiple of a consulting company, or am I going to pay a multiple of a software company? And where's the value? Yeah. And so, my mindset around that has really been honed to pitch ourselves as we're a tech-enabled service. You really can't do the services without the software.
Sure.
And if you buy the software, which you can do, we have a couple of pure subscriber customers. They're not availing themselves of all the subject matter expertise we have here that could really produce exponential value in the software. So I think the value is going to come from how much of that can we kind of change, can we control that story that a tech-enabled service trades at the multiple of a pure SaaS company, and maybe even because when you have SaaS that requires services, my folks and me, we're always in there all the time. It's not like you just turn the software on and then when it comes up for renewal, do we need this? I'm not sure if we need this. Let's just cancel it. Right?
You're working hand in hand with them. Yeah.
So there's this customer success idea. It's embedded in what we do because we have to be there to do that. So I think a potential acquirer who runs a business already that is a tech-enabled service will really get the value of what we're doing. And they're probably going to pay more for that value because they're going to understand how to attach this very quickly into what they're doing. Yeah. So we're going to really concentrate on continuing to go into this really technical area. I try to automate as much of it that we can in the software, but be able to have advisors who can inform that data, inform those reports, come alongside surgeons in addition to hospital administrators, because those worlds, although they live in the same building, they don't mix very well, honestly. Clinicians want to provide patient care, and administrators are responsible for budgets. And now we're bringing that all full circle with hospitals that have very, very low margins and have to concentrate on cost reduction. Wow.
You had mentioned before, and I, we've already been going a good half an hour. You guys have been using EOS for a while now, and EOS is a great operating system. It's fantastic. And you said it's one of the keys to your guys' systemization and success. And I think you had said before that you're actually looking to take the EOS to a next stage. You're kind of almost like reinventing the EOS that you currently have in place. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. So I credit my co-founder, Jason Smith, with introducing us to EOS. He's a voracious reader. He loves audiobooks and reading books when he's on vacation. He was away on vacation, came back with Traction, Gino Wickham's book Traction in his hand, and said, guys, you have to read this. And at the time, I think we only had about 6 employees. We were pretty small. And he said, we need the structure that this provides. We're getting bigger quickly. We're going to kind of lose sight. We had already done pretty much every job in the business. So that was a big advantage too, starting out with something from the ground up. I had done every job with the exception of probably software development, although I have a background in that. I'd done that in other places. So I touched every piece of this. Then he said, we have to implement this. Now, I think while it was a good idea to implement EOS, the way that we executed it could have been done better. We self-implemented. And at the time, there weren't a lot of EOS implementers
Yeah,
It
no.
was basically, Gino that stood the company up, and that was all that you had.
Right.
So, so now I'm in Entrepreneurs Organization. I don't know if you've run into EO in your local market. Yeah. So I'm in EO Baltimore. In my group is an EOS implementer. That's one of the things that she does, among some other things that she does. And I said to her, Shannon, could you take us through as if we'd never implemented? Treat us as if we've never seen this system. And you're going to get the advantage of the fact that we understand it. So we're not going to be kind of like pushing back.
Sure. You're already sold on it.
Yeah, but take us through kind of the best world for her, right? And take us through the whole thing. And so she's taking us through, and we're spending, on Monday next week, I'll have another full day session. We have 3 of those, and we're doing accountability areas. We're doing, the visionary and the integrator. We're doing everything from the ground up. Well, we're going through it so quickly because we understand it and we already love it.
Right.
So yeah, that's the next phase of this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to carry it beyond the leadership group, which is only really where we've used it, and take it down to the entire organization, so that every manager will have their own rocks and their own to-dos and their own level 10 meetings and everything. So
good, man. I think that's awesome that you guys are willing to, hey, almost wipe the slate clean, pretend we've not been using it, and rebuild from the ground up. And I imagine this is going to be so powerful for you, and reveal so many insights that you guys weren't even using before. So
for sure.
I'm excited for you. Yeah,
for sure.
Very cool. Well, hey, Richard, this has been so awesome. I mean, if I, just 30,000 foot view, the stuff we've talked about, unlimited paid time off, and the benefits that you guys have been able to ream from that is amazing. Gutsy approach at firsthand, but it sounds like it's created so much liberation and so much trust within your company. The culture, I just imagine, it goes amazing from that. You are giving people the freedom to make decisions, run their own little company. I love that. We've talked about some of the systems, the EOS, the powerfulness of that, and just everything, that the whole concept that you've created there, man. If I was to paint you into a corner, and if you could only give one piece of advice to the younger CEO version of yourself, what would that be?
Wow. It's probably going to be that I'm very independent. That's why I've created a few businesses, and they've all done well. I've exited one before, and this is a different journey. This one requires a team, and I don't know that I was ready for that when we started this. And so the advice I would probably give to myself is, what's the adage? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go with others. And that was it wasn't just advice, it's a mindset. It's a different way of thinking that I had to adapt to, that I have to slow myself down if I want to take everybody along for the journey. But if we do that, we're going to get further than we would if I just kind of like go through it on my own and leave a wake of disaster, behind me. And so, I would say there's going to be a team element in your future, and you're going to have to get your mind around how you work as a team, not just as a lone ranger. And both can be successful, and there's a place for both. But this particular drive that we're on today is a team effort, and it's a much bigger idea. And in order to get to scale, it's going to require everybody operating at their 100% best. And I have to be able to bring that team along. So
fantastic.
Hopefully I can follow my own advice.
Well, and it's a totally different concept too, right? It's surrounding it, knowing that going in, that the belief that there are other people that can do things way better than you can, surrounding yourself with them and empowering them and trusting them, which you've done obviously a phenomenal job. So very cool. So Richard, if there's anybody out there that has any follow-up questions for you, or if anybody wanted to utilize, if there's any hospitals out there to want to utilize the services of Kermit, how could they get in touch with you?
The best way to find us is just at our website, which is Kermit, spelled just like it sounds, KERMIT PPI, KermitPPI.com. The PPI stands for physician preference items, which is this curious area that we work in. We also publish a blog on our site We're getting ready to potentially launch our own podcast, producing a lot of content and thought leadership in that category. And then also you can find a lot of our stuff on LinkedIn. We publish there all the time, trade shows that we're at, places we're speaking. And my contact information is on the website if anybody wants to get a hold of me. And I would welcome that. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, you bet. No, that's fantastic. And yeah, if I'm a hospital or anybody listening to this and I'm in charge of funding, I'm gonna be giving you a call. So awesome, Richard. Thanks again for being on the show. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. Please hit the like and subscribe button and help us spread the word about what we're doing for business owners and entrepreneurs, what our vision is. With that, I'm Patrick Rogers, and this is the Exitable Business Podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot.